Today's topic, you're leaking money. You got to fix these now. We're going to cover 7 topics that you may be leaking money on, right? Things that you could be wasting money on. However, I am not here to shame you. I'm not going to tell you that coffee from Starbucks or any of your other favorite coffee chains is setting you in a path where you're never going to be retired. A lot of these actually probably fit in most of your lives. The key is it worth the value of your long-term plan, right? So we're going to walk through 7 somewhat controversial topics and little things that you can be more aware of. And maybe some of these you can get rid of, but maybe some of these you have in your life and they belong in your life, and that's okay. So we want to walk through 7 of these items where you may be leaking money, and then areas where you can fix these and hopefully be in a much better spot going forward, or at least understand why these belong in your budget on a day-to-day or a month-to-month basis. So stay tuned. All 7 are coming up next. First up, subscriptions. What isn't a subscription today? We are a financial planning firm. We use subscriptions. Literally, our clients pay us a subscription. We really call it a retainer, but we bill it monthly. But regardless, everything is a subscription today. And while I am a fan of this, because a lot of times it's automating things that we need, do you need all of that? You definitely need financial planning, right? Don't get rid of that one. But in all seriousness, when's the last time you did a little subscription audit? When's the last time you walked through? Am I really watching Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix, Peacock? Shout out to The Office. What other subscriptions do you have in there? Those are TV, but there's everything, right? You got BarkBox, you got the dogs in there, you got anything out there today likely offers a subscription in some way, shape, or form. And I'm not here to tell you to get rid of subscriptions, because in today's world, you probably have to have a lot of subscriptions just to maintain your sanity, right? And just things that we use on a day-to-day basis. The whole point of this is to make sure you're actually utilizing all of those. I'll give you an example on our side. We started utilizing a new budgeting software called Monarch. And Monarch will pick up on things that they see as reoccurring subscriptions. A lot of credit cards are starting to do this as well, where you can see what's on subscription. And we, again, financial planner, do this every day, monitor our budget on a monthly basis. We were paying for a Kindle subscription on one of our children's iPads that I had no idea about. And it was just reoccurring every single month. And because it was a smaller amount, it's one of those ones you really don't pick up on. But then when it's brought to your attention that it's on subscription, whether that's through your credit card or your budgeting software, it's really helpful to see that. And that was one that we literally weren't using in any capacity. So just take some time to see if you are truly leaking any money in terms of these subscriptions, right? Is there anything that you can get rid of? And sometimes it's as simple as, well, maybe get rid of it and see if I actually miss it. I think a lot of times like, I don't want to get rid of it because I might use it. You can always add it back on. And fun little hack, whenever you tell a lot of these subscription providers that you're going to cancel them, it's amazing how quickly they can lower the cost of service or give you a discount for a period of time. So sometimes you just got to push back a little bit. So number 1 on our list is subscriptions. Get a little subscription audit going. Number 2 on the list, gym memberships. Now, you should be physically active, whether that's the gym or you're a garage warrior, or you're hitting the road for lots of miles, whether that's on foot or bike or anything else, right? Having a gym membership can be extremely important for pretty much every human. There's no argument there. The argument comes in with, are you using your gym membership? There's probably a whole nother conversation that gyms are completely out of control these days, where it's like $300 to join this gym. They have the fanciest equipment. You can set up your own influencer channel. You can get a massage there. They have the smoothie bar. Maybe you're utilizing all that. Maybe that is a lot of overkill. I'm a basic YMCA guy, so nothing too fancy, nice low cost. The kids can use the pool. Listen, there's no influencers in there, but there's weights and we can get the job done. So I think there's a whole separate conversation in there, but the whole point of this one is, are you utilizing it? And don't use the example of, well, I keep it there because I might eventually get there, right? If you're not using it, get ready to cancel that. Or even just adding back into your fitness routine, right? Getting into something maybe more simple. Maybe it is something that you can do in the garage or the living room or the Peloton, or name any of the million free YouTube channels today that give great physical activity classes, whether that's different workouts, whether that's HIIT exercises, whether that's yoga, whether that's Pilates. Today on YouTube, you can find anything. You found me, so you can truly find anything out there. So just keep an eye on, are you actually utilizing that? And some gyms are lower cost than others, where maybe it's a $10 or $100 per month, but then we've seen higher than that. And $100 per month could be for an entire family. Like the YMCA is essentially less than $100 a month for an entire family, where other gyms are over $100 per person. So just understanding, are you getting the full value of that? Are there other workouts that you could do that don't require a gym membership? Again, I'm an avid runner. Running is one where you don't need a membership for it. Now, running has its own cost as well, but number 2 on the list is just taking a little audit of that gym membership, right? Are you getting the full value of it? Are there other options out there? Are you not going at all? That's probably our main concern here when we added this to our leaking money conversations, but just check on that gym membership. Make sure you're getting the full value out of it. Number 3, bank fees. Yes, they still exist. Unfortunately, we see them all too often still. And usually it's something as simple as an overdraft fee. And how can this be fixed? Well, a lot of banks today will allow you to say, hey, here's my checking account, but I also want to link my savings account in case there ever would be an overdraft. That is one easy way to do it. Late payments on credit cards, they will charge that late payment penalty, right? A lot of times, it's not super exciting, but if you call in because you have a good payment history, they'll remove that. And even here on bank fees, I'd even include like interest in here. When's the last time you called your credit card provider and see if they could lower your rate for you? Little things like this, that Finance 101, are really important. But bank fees are still out there. Make sure you're paying attention. If your bank is charging a lot of fees, look at some of the other banks that might be a little bit more flexible. I use Ally Bank as a good example, a good online bank where they have very lenient rules on how they charge fees, or even like ATMs. They reimburse you to use ATMs because there's no Ally Bank locations. And there's a lot of great online banks that act like that. I use Ally as an example because that's just what our family uses. But if you were paying bank fees or if you're paying interest on your credit cards in terms of late payment penalties, work on fixing that, whether that's linking a savings account to a checking account to avoid any type of overdraft. If you did miss one payment on a credit card, you were late by a day because life happens, call them. It's not uncommon for them to reimburse that, especially if you have a good payment history. This really wouldn't be labeled as bank fees and credit card fees, but again, calling in to get a lower interest rate on your card. And it's not going to be anything crazy, right? They're not going to take you from 24% down to 10%, but you might be able to get it a little bit lower. So keep an eye on bank fees, credit card fees, because that's another easy way to leak money, especially if you're not aware of it, right? If you kind of have these little issues here and there, but they're consistent, these little things can snowball. So keep an eye on bank fees, credit card fees. That's another easy way that you're likely leaking some money. Number 4, dining out and meal delivery. I'm going to give a personal story so that you know I'm not going to shame this topic. One of the best investments I believe I make on a weekly basis is that I do pay a company to prep my lunches. 5 days, prep lunches. For a long period of time, I used to do that on my own. And I always will challenge our clients to say, what's most important to you? What do you value most? And I value time with my family. By me doing my own meal prep for a long period of time, I realized that I was losing more and more of my Sundays. That was always my meal prep day. So for me, the investment of paying someone else to make my nice, healthy lunches on a weekly basis is well worth the cost of admission. I believe my wife would also back me up in this one. Where textbook answer says, no, Chad, that's a waste of money. You should be making your own. Sure, while that may be a waste, I would also say I value time with my boys and my wife and just all the crazy family activities we do together on weekends, Sundays in particular. So I'm not here to shame this topic. You also have to eat. So when we look at a client's budget, I would say we're going to see food in one way or another. It's either going to be a higher grocery bill or it's going to be a higher dining out and meal delivery service. And I use a meal delivery service in that example of someone that actually preps the meals. We go pick them up, they're ready to go. Another easy example is, right, Uber Eats, Caviar, Grubhub, any of those food delivery services. And even for our physicians, right, even just dining out consistently in the hospital cafeteria. Now, ideally, it's free or at a large discount by you being an employee, but we've seen a little bit of everything in terms of what that looks like per hospital per se. So keep an eye on this topic. If there's a chance to maybe remove a dining out here or there or a takeout meal with more cooking at home, these are areas where we can see the budget get out of whack very quickly. And food in particular is one spot of the budget where clients consistently underestimate. They'll either underestimate the grocery bill or they're like, we only spend $500 per month on dining out. But then when we actually get through it, we notice that it sometimes is a multiple of that, right? It's $1,000 or $1,500. So again, not saying this does not belong in your life. If you're a very busy professional, you don't have time to cook, this might be your only option. But then we have to know that you're providing a larger value to the convenience of that compared to you going to the grocery store, getting your own food, either prepping that food or cooking it in advance as well. But this is another area where leaking money is very common because the cost can be higher, right? Even with meal delivery service, half the cost it feels like is the actually paying for the food to get delivered, the actual Uber Eats fee in this example, plug in any meal service. And that's one thing you want to keep an eye on because that is an easy way to leak money. So do a little food audit here, right? See what the grocery bill actually looks like, see what the meal delivery service looks like, dining out looks like. So keep an eye on that. That's our number 4 one here on the list, is just the overall food audit and see what's leaking or justified in this category. Number 5 on the list, drinks out. Pains me to say this. I'm a guy that loves a great margarita. It always tastes a little bit better when the restaurant makes it, assuming they don't make it too sugary. But this is another topic where there is such an upcharge that it's somewhat insane, right? And now I know there is something extremely special when you get to go out to dinner and you get a nice drink with it. The whole point of this being is just keep an eye on that, right? If you know you're going out, might be a little bit of a night where you get a little bit extra tipsy, maybe have a pregame drink at the house, which is a little bit lower cost, or maybe a nightcap at the house. But just keep an eye on this. This is one category where you kind of look through your receipt at the end of the night and you're like, oh my goodness, a third of that was actually just for the drinks. Drinks have this huge upcharge to them. We could probably have a whole nother conversation on why we would say, hey, you could probably have a much healthier life without alcohol. But I'm going to settle in the middle ground here. As I would say, I have a 2 margarita rule, fancy margarita rule. So whatever your preference here, if you don't drink, if you do drink, if you do partake in alcoholic beverages, just keep an eye on that. I know this isn't breaking news, but that's another area that's very easy to leak money. But also just keeping things a little bit simple. You know, if you're going to have a pregame drink and you know the Uber is going to take you to a restaurant, or coming home and you're going to have a nightcap, just keep an eye on drinks out, because that is a huge profit margin for restaurants. And the only way they make that profit is because you're willing to pay $22 for that fancy margarita. So number 5 on the list, keep an eye on the drinks out budget. Number 6 on the list, it pains me to add this one because it is so overhyped by so many that I don't want to be labeled as one of those that are coffee shaming you. But if you are a person that needs to go to your favorite coffee shop every single day to get your favorite $14 latte, this could be you. Now, just as I noted at the start, if this is something that you truly value, it's built into the budget, and you say, listen, I know that I spend a couple hundred, maybe $1,000 or more on coffee in a given year, but I value that and I'm okay giving up something else, so be it. But I would challenge you to maybe think outside the box. We are an espresso family, where an espresso is your fancier Keurig, as I call it, but it's very good coffee, in my opinion. I'm sure there's coffee snobs that are like, oh my gosh, this guy's horrible. But it's a very good in-between. And not to say that a Keurig or something is not, or a giant cup of Folgers, right? That might be your nostalgia, right? You might love that. It brings it back to when you were a kid and mom and dad had Folgers brewing through the house. Whatever the example would be, coffee is overpriced dramatically. Plug in any large chain here. They charge you a ton for a cup of coffee. My challenge to you would be just keep an eye on this, right? If there is a chance for you to add a good cup of coffee at the house, or make your own latte at the house, right? They're not that hard. Get a little espresso going in the Keurig or the Nespresso. Put a little choice of your milk, right? Maybe do some oat milk, some coconut milk. Maybe just do some whole milk or 2%. You plug it in. A little sugar in there, right? You could just shake it up, make your own latte. So keep an eye on what you're spending on coffee. If you're the once every now and then, this is not going to throw it out. If you're the person that has to go every single day, this is not going to destroy your retirement. My goodness, that one just always pains me when I hear that. Sure, could there be better uses of funds? There could be. But again, if you value that, enjoy that cup of coffee. Just make sure you understand that you have to give up something else then to give some room in there to make sure that you're truly not throwing off your retirement. But coffee, very expensive, very high margins when you go into these coffee shops. Just keep an eye on that. See if there are alternatives to you. Maybe it is finding that middle of the road. I always call it espresso middle of the road because it feels a little bit fancier than a Keurig, but it's certainly not as fancy as you going to the local barista and getting your coffee to go there. So number 6 on the list, it pains me because it's so overhyped that it's going to destroy your life and you're never going to be able to retire, which is not the case. Coffee. But just see if you maybe get a good alternative. Last but not least, you didn't think I was going to skip a finance topic, right? No. We get a finance topic, and that topic is expense ratios, and likely, possibly, one of your largest opportunities to leak money. In today's world, one of the things that we have all benefited from the most is the pricing wars inside of the actual investment fund family. So your Vanguards, your Fidelities of the world, they're all fighting amongst each other because they want to have the lowest cost, what we call expense ratios. And if expense ratios are a new term for you, expense ratios are the internal fees to utilize these ETFs, these mutual funds. Most people, sadly, don't even know that these exist, but they do. And they can make a big difference in your long-term plan. This is one where, if you ever hear like the 1% advisory fee is going to ruin your retirement, we're not here to debate that, but it's that similar type of fee. But this one is embedded in the actual mutual funds or the ETFs that you're utilizing. And let me give you some examples. So if you have $100,000 invested, and let's just say the funds that you're using, let's just use your 401k, for example. The expense ratios are around 75 basis points. So 0.75. So 75% of 1%. So 0.75. On $100,000, that's $750 per year. I would argue that 75 basis points is a very expensive portfolio. In today's world, because of these pricing wars and also because of 401k providers getting a lot more diligent, because there's been a lot of lawsuits on not updating plans, not being fiduciary. So because of that, we've all benefited from seeing these 401k plans really get modernized, updated with lower cost fees, a lot of good index funds. If that's maybe a 0.07, so what we would call 7 basis points, $70 per year, difference of $680. Now, some of you may say that's a lot of money. Some of you may say that's not that much money. The point is that number is only going to grow. So let me use an example of you now have $1 million in your 401k. And this could be as a household, right? It could be you, your spouse, your significant other. Same numbers, 75 basis points, so 0.75 on $1 million portfolio. That's $7,500 per year. Where if you were able to update the investments, build a good low-cost diversified portfolio utilizing some of these index funds, and you got it down to 0.07, well, if you're good at math, that's $700 per year. That's a difference now of $6,800 per year. And depending on where you are at this $1 million point, remember, these accounts are going to keep growing, right? You're funding them. Hopefully the market's doing good for us. These fees keep going up, and that's annual. So talk about leaking money. If you're that last scenario, you could be leaking almost $7,000 per year. Now, there's a lot of variables that come into here. And fortunately, we haven't seen many 401k plan like the average, what we call the weighted expense ratio, that high at 75. I'm using it more as an example case. Now, we have seen plans that have been lower than 7 basis points. So on the other side, we've even seen them to get a little bit lower. We did a plan presentation yesterday. Their 401k plan, when we built it out, we got the whole way down to 3 basis points. So there is room on the low side. 75 basis points might be a little bit higher. If I recall, I believe I saw recently that the average expense ratio is still around like 57 basis points, which has come down a lot. But we've also seen plans that are above 75 basis points where a lot of the funds are around 1%. So maybe even higher in there. So one of the easiest fixes for a very large leak, we're talking possibly one of your largest leaks that you could have, and unfortunately these go extremely unnoticed by most, is those expense ratios, right? Those internal fees on the actual funds that you're utilizing inside of your 401k plan. So keep an eye on those. If you have not done that, just see what your expense ratios are on the funds that you're utilizing. If you're working with a financial advisor, they should be able to help you walk through this as well and just see, here's where you are, here's what other options you have. So keep an eye on that. But one that goes very unnoticed and is likely, possibly the most largest leak that you could have is those expense ratios. And this pertains to every investment account. I'm utilizing your 401k because it's probably your largest account. It's also one that most of you understand, 401k, 403b, but it could be 457b. It could be your IRA. It could be your Roth IRA. It could be your taxable account. Any investment account with investments inside of it, and even cash money market accounts have expense ratios. You need to pay attention to all these parts because there are fees incurring in there. You just don't feel it because it's coming out of the actual account. That this could be a large leak that you should be paying attention to. So 7, which could have easily been our first one here, expense ratios. Keep an eye on those expense ratios. And there you have it. 7 leaky money habits. Some of them might belong in your budget. Some of them may not. No matter which ones do belong, at least make sure you're putting the proper value. Make sure you're getting the proper use out of it. And we covered a little bit of everything in there, right? We hit everything from expense ratios to coffee. So just take some time, walk through areas that you could be leaking money. And we use 7, right? There's probably hundreds that you could add in there. These are just 7 of the most common that we see day in and day out with our clients and ones that we want to bring to your attention. So as always, thanks for hanging out with me for the last 15 minutes or so. If you have not subscribed and you want more leaky money tips, you can subscribe to the channel here. Click on the bell icon. You also get a notification every time we release a new video. Please continue to share ideas and thoughts in the comments on what you would like to see next. So with our new weekly updates, any ideas that you'd like to see, we'd love to get included in one of our future videos. Again, thanks for hanging out with me, and I will catch you on the next video.